Hey, my name is Anna. I'm a licensed architect based in California. My architecture job is fun, but it can definitely be overwhelming and stressful at times. So I'm looking for a side project, something to keep my mind off work and help me relax in the evenings. I thought it would be fun to create some art and document the process. So welcome to my very first YouTube video about my first evening art project. Stick around, I'll show you how it goes. For my first project, I'm going to make an architectural drawing of the Roman Pantheon. I've decided to start with whatever is familiar and comfortable, even though I haven't made anything like this since grad school. Here's the sketch of what I intend to draw. You can see that I want to have a transverse section of the building at the top and a plan at the bottom. Since this is going to be a 2D drawing, I think it would be nice to add a sense of volume and depth with shading. But instead of pencil shading that you can see on the sketch, I think I'm going to do a watercolor wash over the line work. That's why I'm going to draw on the watercolor paper. For references, I'm using some images of the Pantheon that I found on the public domain websites. And I've also been lucky enough to visit the building several times during college and grad school. I've taken some notes and I made some sketches of my own while there, so I'm going to use those for reference as well. Here's one of those sketches. I've chosen the Pantheon because I've been fascinated by this building ever since I first learned about it. It's been around for almost 2,000 years, and it's still not only holding up its crazy concrete dome, the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world, by the way, but it's also fully functional and in pretty amazing condition. Think about the buildings in the Roman Forum, for example, that are the same age and barely have two stones standing on top of each other. They look like dust, and yet the Pantheon is still glorious. I read somewhere that the Pantheon is so well preserved because it has always been used. I also read somewhere that while the hole in the ceiling is massive and not covered with anything, the rainwater almost never reaches the beautiful marble floor. I read that it has to do with the chimney effect, where the warmer air rises towards the oculus and breaks the raindrops to mist. How cool is that? Anyways, now I'm moving on to details. And by the way, you don't see it in the video, but it's probably been a week of drawing in the evenings on and off. I wish I could spend on it more than half an hour at a time. Now that the pencil drawing is complete, I'm doing the watercolor wash. I have pre-mixed 3 cups with watercolor solutions of different colors that correspond to different materials in the building. I have yellow ochre for yellow marble, some undetermined pinkish purplish color for red marble, and I'm using raw umber for concrete. You can see that in my initial layers, I'm just conveying materiality. In the subsequent layers, I'm going to use the solution of black watercolor with water to create depth and shadows. To make the solutions, I pretty much got watercolor paint on a paintbrush and then washed the paintbrush in half a cup of clean water. And I repeated it several times for each color. So I ended up with 4 cups ready to go. When I was taught to do watercolor washes at school, I was taught to make the solutions very, very light and layer them up to create enough value. I remember doing like 10, 15, 20 layers in each drawing. This way you get even coverage and super smooth gradients if you're making gradients. But let's be honest, I don't have that kind of time right now. When I do something, I want to see the difference right away. And my black solution is so black that it's not transparent anymore. When you create a watercolor wash, you tilt the sheet and create a drop of water at the top, and then you move the drop down with the paintbrush. The key is not to let the drop sit at the same spot for too long. Otherwise, it would saturate the paper too much and create a darker blotch. So it's a bit of a juggling act to keep the drop moving at the same speed while covering all the areas that you need. It kind of becomes even trickier when you're moving several drops at the same time, or when you're creating gradients like I'm doing here, and oh my goodness, this is not working. You can see that this is a disaster. Ugh. Oh, okay, whatever. I'm having fun here. Am I? I'm having some very messy fun. Now that I'm done and happy with my watercolor layers, I'm going to go over pencil lines with a black fine tip pen to make the drawing crisper and more durable. This liner is waterproof and light fast, which means that the drawing will not fade in the future. Now the drawing is all done, and here it is framed. I think it looks pretty decent. At least I don't think I can say that I'm ashamed of it. The process of creating it took about a month. It was exactly what I was looking for, and I had a lot of fun working on it, but there were definitely highs and lows. There were a couple of very boring parts, like drawing all the ceiling coffers or tracing all the line work with ink. The best part was definitely the watercolor wash. It made a big difference right away, and I love everything to do with color. Perhaps for my next project, I should do something more colorful. All right, thanks for sticking around. I hope to see you next time. Bye.